My name is Erica Turnbow, and today we will be talking about, does teen sexting have an impact on sexual behavior? And the required reading for this week was the Longitudinal Association Between Teen Sexting and Sexual Behavior that was written by Temple and Choi. What we will be discussing is the idea that teen sexting is not a precursor to actual sexual behaviors. So this idea, there has been some debate on whether teen sexting is a precursor to actual sexual behaviors or if teen sexting is more something that happens after you're more comfortable with somebody. According to the reading, would this statement be true or false? And then we're just going to watch this short little video.
They call it sexting. Teenagers using cell phones to send nude or semi-nude pictures to a girlfriend or boyfriend is not only disturbing, it could be illegal. A new study says 1 out of 5 teens has sent them, and almost a third have received these inappropriate images. In some states, it's considered child pornography, and it even sparked court cases in Wisconsin and Ohio. And if that isn't bad enough, these photos are often forwarded from friend to friend, and in some situations, the entire class. Parents may feel torn about checking out their teen's cell phone. There's certainly a debate to be had about privacy and trust, but the stakes are high when kids start cyber-swapping photos. When they hit the internet, they are there to stay. And in the hands of a college admissions officer or future employer, they could even destroy a chance to fulfill a dream. And there is nothing sexy about that. That's a page from my notebook. I'm Katie Couric, CBS News.
In this video, it talks about how there are quite a few teens that are sexting, as well as how impactful this decision can be for these teens. As Katie Couric said, it can impact job opportunities as well as cause huge amounts of shame. But there's also this part that Temple and Choi were studying, is that if teens sext, are they more likely to involve themselves in riskier behaviors, since sexting is seen as somewhat risky itself, especially because of some of the things that can happen if your sexts get out. And then the hypothesis within the study, the authors were hypothesizing that sexting is positively associated with having sex within the next year or so. They also suggest that sexting may lead to other riskier sexual behaviors. Some of the other riskier sexual behaviors they were talking about is drug and alcohol use. So they were talking about drug and alcohol use before sex, during sex, and after sex, as well as they were trying to research, are teens actually using condoms? Of course, we know already that condom usage is extremely important, as well as having sex and using drugs or alcohol, especially when you're under the age, are very risky things to do. So this was another piece that the authors were trying to sniff out to see if these teens are actually going through with some of these riskier behaviors. So the theoretical rationale for the study, the authors were unsure if sexting leads to sexual behavior or if sexting comes after someone is more comfortable after sexual behaviors, so then they indulge in sexting. The authors also suggested that sexting is kind of a gateway action leading towards sexual behaviors in the future. So they were wondering if, as we said, if sexting comes first or if it comes after, and if so, what behaviors do these teens show? And then here we just have some key terms. The key terms we have here is teen sexting, texts that have a sexual nature as a topic. For this study, the definition was limited to fully naked pictures. They They did not include semi-nude photos or explicit messages talking about like the actions that they might want to have, simply because of legal reasons as well as psychological issues that these teens might develop. As well as for adolescents, the age range they used within this particular study is the time period between 10 and 19 years of age. Sexual behavior was listed as sexual intercourse, not including oral sex. They just, for some reason, decided not to include oral sex. Not quite sure why. There was not a distinction made between vaginal and anal intercourse, nor was there a distinction made between heterosexual and homosexual intercourse. But for some reason, they just didn't want to add oral sex. And we do have some abbreviations. Some of the abbreviations within the study is CI, or a confidence interval. And then we also have an OR, which is an odds ratio. And then for the methods, what did they do? The sample was pulled from a study in Texas they were doing called Dating It Safe. They were trying to research teen dating violence and high-risk behaviors within adolescents. The participants were pulled from a longitudinal study. Within the study, only waves 2 and 3 were used, simply because wave 1 was not, nobody asked about sexual behaviors in wave 1. The original sample of participants were numbered 1,042. Though the retention rate for waves 2 and 3 were not 100%. For wave 2, it was... Again, the retention rate for wave 2 was 92.5%, and for wave 3, the retention rate was a meager 85.8%. And that's where the data we have for this study, this article, has been pulled. And then the measures. Participants were asked 3 different questions. These 3 questions are: 1, have you ever sent naked photos of yourself to another person through text or email? 2, have you ever asked somebody to send naked pictures of themselves to you? And 3, have you ever been asked to send a naked picture of yourself through text or email? Participants were then asked whether they had sexual intercourse or not. Again, let's remember that due to legal issues as well as psychological issues, what they're talking about is only fully naked pictures, not semi-nudes and not explicit pictures. These results were then coded, 1 for yes and 2 for no, and then this is what we have as the results. And you can see here that the R values are a bit different for each thing. So let's kind of break this down a little bit. All of these significant values are marked by the little asterisk symbol, but there was not any differentiation between risky sexual behaviors and increased sexting. So from the study, we can conclude that sexting happens before sexual behaviors by approximately a year. But again, sexting was not associated with risky sexual behaviors. If we go back to this graph right here, we can see that while there was a decent amount of sexting happening, if we go down here, alcohol and drugs before sex, it is a non-significant number. And then we don't see any significant numbers in regards to risk because even the unprotected sex was a non-significant number as well. And so we're already talked about those, so we're just going to scoot past that into the limitations. The researchers did not vet the questions with teenagers, so having better questions or a self-report system might yield different results. This is simply because how teens might feel about answering these questions might be a bit different depending on how the questions are worded, or maybe a teen asking another teen instead of asking an adult. And another issue is that their definition of sexting was very, very narrow. Again, as we said, it's only if teens have sent a fully nude picture, not including explicit messages and not including semi-nude photos, which probably should have been a part of this study. Having a broader definition might yield better and different results in regards to if risk is associated or not. In conclusion, sexting is a precursor to having intercourse by approximately a year, though sexting does not necessarily lead to risky sexual behaviors. Again, as we saw, the risky sexual behaviors, there was a non-significant number attached to alcohol and drug use as well as unprotected sex. So there is not as much of a tie between sexting and risky sexual behaviors as the authors might have thought. And then this is just going to be my reference. This just shows the article and how to retrieve it, as well as the link for it. And that's going to be all from me. Thank you for coming and watching. Goodbye.